That's Jon Toogood, Lost in His Hometown. The Shihad frontman is about to release his first solo album. It's titled Last of the Lonely Gods. Like many of us, Jon's gone through some tough times, and making this music has helped him make sense of things. Even making this video was therapeutic as he walked the streets of his childhood, stirring up memories and emotions.
That didn't mean it was true.
Well, this is literally a song about me going on these huge walks around Te Whanganui-a-Tara and where I grew up to try and stay sane while we were helping my sister out with my brother-in-law who'd got really aggressive terminal cancer. And that was just to clear my head. I'd go on these massive walks around these streets that I grew up in, and because I was brought up in Island Bay, which is a southern, suburb, and it's actually really beautiful, but sort of a little bit foreboding and quite craggy and interesting. It's heavy.
Has it changed over the years?
And it looks well, yes. When I was growing up, it was our family, lots of old people, and lots of Italian fisherman community. Right. And now it's like, because of the cost of housing, I think it's more just families and stuff, but it's still beautiful. And anyway, one of the days that I went on a big walk, I'm sure anyone who's sort of gone back to visit where they grew up, it's really, it sort of stirs up memories and emotions, and especially because of what was happening in our family. It was making me think about my childhood and my teenage years growing up there, and one day I got actually lost over walking back from Kilburnie back to Island Bay, and I thought I knew that like the back of my hand, and it turns out I didn't. But I just thought it was a great title, and it was also, it's a song about getting lost in memory, So anyway, the video idea was, let's go back to where I grew up. Yep. And yeah, there's the house that I grew up in, 14A Reef Street, which is across the road from, Shoreland Park, where I spent my whole childhood, which is across the road from, Island Bay and Taputuranga, the island that's, very famous because Rita Angus did that amazing painting of it. Right. And I wanted people, if they're going to listen to that song, just to sort of see the images that I was sort of seeing,
Yeah, and of course you're a parent, so
yeah.
Do you kind of try to raise your kids like you were being raised, or do you kind of go, I don't want to do that because that screwed me up?
Well, no, I had a very, looking back, especially as I'm older, I realized I was in a very loving, supportive environment. My parents were both working class Londoners that came over on the boats in the 50s. Mm-hmm. I think they called them the £10 Poms, because they gave, the government gave them £10 to start a new life.
Right.
And we didn't have much growing up, but and in fact, my parents used to make, when they didn't have any food, they'd make it interesting for us we did have a gas heater in the living room, so we'd get white toast and put it on a fork and toast our own dinner in front of the fire and stuff. But I had no idea that we were maybe not rich, but until I met kids at school and went, oh, this house is way nicer. But it was always loving, and it was always supportive. I never felt like I couldn't do anything with my life that I wanted to. I think early on my parents wanted me to be a sports person because I showed a bit of promise there.
Right.
And they were, when I sort of gave that up for rock and roll at the age of 15, I think they were a little bit disappointed.
I hear you're pretty good at cricket.
Yeah, I was the captain of the Wellington representative team, primary school, but I used to play against Chris Keynes, he was Canterbury captain. And in my team, I had Mark Ellis, who went on to be an All Black and a Warrior, and also Danny Haimona, who went on to be Damn Native, the rapper. He was, he was my best mate growing up, and it's pretty interesting that we both ended up in the music industry.
Right.
Yeah.
So this record is obviously you decided that it wasn't going to be a Shihad record or a group effort at all. It was going to be a solo thing.
Yeah.
When did that come to you?
Okay, so you have to have a little bit of a backstory.
Sure.
Basically, like a lot of people that I've met over the last few years, I had a lot of personal carnage happen during the COVID thing, a lot of separation from my family. Had to say goodbye to my mum on a phone when she was passing away in Wellington. I was stuck in, lockdown in Melbourne where I was living at the time. Then moved the family back to Aotearoa after living in Melbourne for 22 years, I think. Mm-hmm. So that was a big upheaval. Then catching COVID at a show in Akaroa and then getting a COVID complication that turned my pre-existing tinnitus, which was ringing in the ears, up very loud to the point where I couldn't sleep and was developing massive panic attacks. And after seeing throat specialists and the tinnitus clinic at the Auckland University, and that not working, someone suggested going to see a cognitive behavioural therapist. That was my way out of it. My therapist said, you can't meditate, but we need to wind your nervous system back. But another form of mindfulness is to play music.
Right.
And so I just instantly went, great. If that's a chance for me to get out of this hell that I'm going through, I'm going to do that. And I needed gentle music because of what had happened. I didn't need thunderous, apocalyptically heavy music. Yeah. I needed gentle music that could articulate the feelings I was going through, the loss of my mum, and the feeling of vertigo, losing both parents gives you, and then being a father and realizing, all right, I'm that to them, my kids, and then and just all that crazy stuff that happens as you get older, and I needed music that was gentle, that could hold me, that could make sense of the stuff I'd been through.
Were you listening to other music that kind of...
I suppose so. I mean, I've always listened to the acoustic guitar. Like I like, when Neil Young goes acoustic. I like when Bob Marley's acoustic. I like, when Led Zeppelin do acoustic. Going to California and stuff like that. I love that stuff. Yep. And the Beatles. Yep. It was the first instrument my parents bought me was when I was 7 years old. They bought me a 3/4 size nylon string acoustic, which I played to death, and it's my safe place. It's nostalgic for me as an instrument, and it's also it's a band in one instrument.
Yep.
It's the bass, it's the top notes, it's a songwriting machine, and it was a great instrument to write about what I'd just been through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were writing, is it different? It's got to be different for you, knowing that this is going to be your own solo album, and you're going to make this record pretty much on your own.
I wasn't making a record. I was trying to work my way out of pain.
Right.
And it only occurred to me that maybe this stuff was good when I had a body of work of about 8 songs. I was like, this is some of the most honest, and I mean, personally, as a 53-year-old, it's music I want to hear.
Yeah.
Maybe other people like it, I don't know, but I love it. And so having been with Warner Music for over 20 years, that was like family. I trust those people there. So I felt like I could play this quite vulnerable, music too, just to get an outside perspective, because my daughter and my son were singing all the words, and my wife was enjoying it, and I was finding it really comforting. So I thought, I'll play it to them, and then it turns out, they liked it too, and all of a sudden it was like, well, maybe I'm going to do a solo record.
Yep.
I wasn't writing to make a solo record. I was writing to work my way out of a tricky spot.
Right, gotcha. Yeah. So you recorded in Sydney, right?
I recorded a lot of the vocals that you hear on the album in Howick in the basement,
right?
Actually, but over the years I've collected some decent recording equipment, and so when I write demos, I give it everything, because I'm using basically the same equipment that I would be at a really nice studio. It's nothing fancy, but it's just an acoustic guitar and voice. So originally it sounded a lot like Nebraska, Bruce Springsteen, which was good. I liked it. But when Warner's heard it and went, we'll put it out like this if you want, I was like, man, for some reason, this producer from Australia that I'd worked with previously, a guy called Scott Horscroft, his name instantly came up in my head. I don't know why, but he's a guy that's worked with Empire of the Sun, who I think are a great pop band. And he co-wrote Silverchair's Straight Lines, which is my favourite Silverchair song. And we'd worked with him on Shihad on the Beautiful Machine record. Didn't end up using him because he was a little bit too pop for me at the time. Right. But I thought, with the heaviness of the lyrics, there's still pop music. It's still pop songs. And if anyone's going to be able to interpret it, he's going to be able to do that. So I sent it over to him in its raw form, and he instantly came back and went, well, I'm the same age as you. I've got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and these are the best lyrics I've heard for ages. And so come over to my studio and let's do it. And if you're comfortable with it, I know a great piano player, and I know a great violin player, and I know a great young drummer called Harry Dave from a band called the Middle Kids, and we'll just have a play. And I'm like, well, I've done adults records and I know the power of collaboration from learning it through that. And so I just basically sat back in this amazing studio with a producer that was I felt safe with, who then introduced me to these amazing young musicians who I let them run, and I just watched my songs go from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions.
Now, speaking of 3 dimensions, we talked about the first song. I want to jump ahead to the last song, Missing Paradise, which sounds it sounds very big.
It is big.
And it sounds like it belongs at the end of the record. So, two questions. How much time did you spend with the track listing? And tell me a little bit about how that track came together.
Okay, so track listing we spent a lot of time with that, and I've done that ever since Shihad's first EP. Right. It's like, as much as you arrange, the arrangement of a song's important, the arrangement of an album is important to us. And I think that's just because of our age and our lineage. It's like I still like that escapism of 40 minutes of a story, and going down those different pathways. So yes, it all had to work. So we spent a lot of time getting that right, and I think we got it pretty damn close. And but as far as Missing Paradise goes, that was a song literally I wrote while I was in Wellington, separated from my wife and children for 3.5 months during the Omicron outbreak in New Zealand, and they were in Melbourne. And it was tough because there was no flights going between the two countries. I couldn't even tell them when I was coming back because I didn't know, and that separation was a nightmare. So that was basically about that feeling. It starts just as an acoustic guitar thing. I did put a little bit of terribly played piano on it on my demo, and played a bass. But I knew that it had this build, and I think Scott, the producer, could sense that too. So he just let Andy Mack, the pianist, just play, and that was the first song we did actually in the studio. And I just remember filming it and then texting it to my wife going, check this out, man, it sounds insane. It is big sounding. So
now you're going to take the show on the road, right?
Yep.
What's that going to be like?
It's going to be me and an acoustic guitar, and the reason that is how it is because that's how I wrote the songs.
Sure.
And I just want to be able to tell the stories, play the songs as blisteringly as good as possible, and just sit in a room full of humans and be a human that's loving music and playing music,
So Kiwi audiences can be fickle, and they can be noisy, and they can be rowdy and distracted, and these are very, you're putting yourself very out there, vulnerable. So how are you concerned about that?
Because I have no problem telling people to shut the fuck up. I've been on stage since I was 18 years old. I'm 53. It's like if you're going to pay money to see a band or see an act, it's like, well, so is everybody else in this room. So maybe have that conversation after. But you know what? I mean, my audience is pretty close to my age now. So it's usually pretty respectful, and I've been playing these songs live probably over the last 6 months, and inevitably after every show people come up and go, shit, that happened to me, or that's happened to a friend of mine, or I know what that pain of losing a mum is, or it's time to be human, and I just think, and that's where I'm at, and I think the music's good, so I'm looking forward to playing it.
And are you thinking ahead? What are you going to do next?
Yeah, I'm already writing. I'm already writing. But I'll write something chill, and then sometimes I feel like writing a riff. So I'm still in Shihad,
right?
And I still love playing in that band, man. It's like riding a dragon, So that's just another side of me, yeah. But at the moment, this music, Last of the Lonely Gods, really is where I'm at. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you, Marty.
It's fantastic you come up and talk about it, because it's got to be tough to I know you've done a lot of interviews, and to have to go through it all. Is it hard?
Well, actually, it has been interesting because it is dealing with some heavy subjects.
Right.
And I suppose there is a danger of re-traumatizing yourself. But, I think the world is a pretty brutal place out there at the moment, and I think if there's ever going to be a time to be as human as possible, it's sort of now, that's what I want to be, so I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, it's what happened to me, and I genuinely love these songs. I listened to this album hundreds of times over because I actually find it really comforting, this music, it's music I want to hear, All
right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, bro.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.